Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Soshing with Suntwe. If you haven't been with us before, this is a show where we take ordinary people who have made extraordinary choices and explore how they've created extraordinary lives for themselves, because we don't believe in anybody being extraordinary. We believe that everybody's the same and everybody's ordinary, but some people just make extraordinary choices. If you haven't been with me before, just give me a second. I'm going to do a bit of shares, get the whole ball rolling and try and get as many of you on here as possible so that we can all see what's going on. If you're already with us, then please drop a comment. Let us know where you're watching from. Say hi. Just know that this is an interactive show. It's not just between myself and the guest. It's meant for everybody to jump on board and get involved in the conversation. So drop your comments, drop your questions. I can see Val Chikali, our good old faithful, and Abby Dent are with us already. Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming and being so loyal to the show every week. It means a hell of a lot. This happens every week. We're on episode 29 today, so we've done 29 episodes this year, which is quite a massive commitment for me. And I will be closing down the show next week at the 30th episode. So this season will have 30 episodes, and that's what I'm closing down on for this year. I will keep you all updated. If you join the group on Facebook, Soshing with Suntwe, you'll be able to see all the details and what the new season's going to hold for us. Next week's show is going to be a panel show where we've got an interesting discussion about I don't know how to, I haven't phrased it correctly yet, but I will. It's going to be about the pressure males put on themselves to provide and be the provider in society, and whether it's warranted or not, and whether that pressure is actually supposed to be there. So we've got a good panel up for that, and should be a good discussion. So yeah, if you can be there next week to throw in your input and let us know what's going on, we'll be stoked to have you there. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome my guest today, Sharon Stead from the Amalinda collection. We're so stoked to have you, Sharon, and it's been a long time. I've known Sharon for a few years now, and yeah, always a pleasure. So welcome.
Hey, Paul, thank you. It's actually my pleasure to be here, and even though I'm number 29th on your list, thank you. Thank you very much.
I asked you a long time ago.
I still feel a lot of privilege for being here, given that you are pretty much a trailblazer in our industry. You are.
Well, that's very high praise coming from you. Thank you. Wow, we've got quite a few people watching already, so this is great. So not to waste time, because we've got an hour, I know, in a conversation with you and I. An hour is a very short amount of time. So let's take it back to the beginning. You grew up on a game ranch. Tell us a little bit about your early years on the game ranch, what area, and some of your fondest memories that you have from back there, and how it shaped your passion for the industry that you're in now.
Okay, how far do you want to go back? Like I'm kind of old, but so yeah, if I go back, I'll probably say that I was born Rhodesian and then became Zimbabwean when I was 12 years old. So my growing up years were during our liberation struggle, and but being on the farm, I mean, it was a wild sort of upbringing. We were carefree. We rode horses bareback and got thrown off, but we were tough, and that's how my dad kind of brought us up. But just having that freedom and that space, it was a remarkable upbringing. I think it certainly did shape me, and I learned a lot about bush law and just living with wildlife, and as well as just being a farmer's daughter. And I always take myself back to those roots, that I am a farmer's daughter and small town girl.
Whereabouts was the farm?
So do you know the airport, just north of the airport, Turk Mine?
Yeah.
And it's a cattle farming sort of area. So Turk Mine had a great community there. So our nearest neighbor was about 50 kilometers from us, but that was called a neighbor. So we would always congregate at the clubhouse in Turk Mine over weekends and play tennis and cricket, and the parents would just soch and play bridge, and us kids would just be running wild. So it was and it was 50 kilometers away from the nearest person. So yeah, Turk mine.
So in the Turk mine area, not further towards Nyati or?
Yeah, before Turk mine. So after
Bembezi.
To Nyati, yeah.
Okay, so like Bembezi sort of.
Yeah, just over. Well, it was about 30 kilometers from the Bembezi River, if you know it. Yeah.
One of the very first rivers I ever kayaked was the Bembezian flood.
Sure. On a tube. Were you on a tube?
No, in a kayak, in a proper kayak.
We used to go down rivers on tubes though, but not, like on those flash flood sort of times.
Yeah, because it flash flooded, and Dylan Bennett and I jumped in cars and we raced out there, and we ran the weir that then goes under the main road.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then from there all the way to the lake, to the dam.
So that's kind of dangerous, because we've been stuck behind that bridge before, and the water's come over the bridge, and it's been pretty hectic. But I think, are you talking about the Bembezi Bridge on the Victoria Falls Road or on the Turk Mine Road?
Turk Mine Road.
Yeah, so it's that little narrow guy.
Yeah.
One. Yeah, no, that was kind of dangerous at certain times of the year.
Yeah, it was lekker.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah. So okay, so you said you left school at 16, and you've been self-employed since then. So tell us about leaving school and what you did straight out of school, and how your progression went from there towards where you are now.
Well, I hope my ex-headmistress is not watching this tonight, because I kind of got to 16 and did my O-levels, failed them. I think I got 4 O-levels, and was like, I'm out of here, and gave the school the middle finger, and was like, my growing up years, I was a daydreamer. I just spent my time looking out the window. I'm pretty not ADHD, I'm pretty ADD. But just dreaming and thinking that there's got to be something more. I'm not a classroom learner, and I think there's a lot to be said about learning that's not without being in 4 walls. But I just dreamt of. I just couldn't wait to make money. I wanted to make my own money. I wanted to be independent. I wanted to have my own place, and so just leaving school, I had no idea what I was going to do. And funnily enough, I've been asked to go back to school and talk to the leavers since then, the latest leavers, and tell them, what it's like and what their life choices that they can make. And I'm always saying, don't make that choice. Don't leave school at 16. It was different in our time. It was different in my dad's time, because he also left school at that sort of age. And the world is a very different place today. So I think, leaving school at 16 was pretty irresponsible, but my folks, they knew I was a bit of a wild spirit, and they couldn't keep me in, and I was going to make it on my own. And I think they kind of they set you free. And I think that was one of the biggest opportunities that I had, was to be set free and go and make it on your own. My dad has never worked for anybody in his life, and I think I followed in those sort of footsteps. And I'm kind of like a control freak. I don't like to be told what to do, so I had to figure it out myself, and I wanted to be the boss. And I suppose that's how it all panned out.
I can relate to most of that. For the record, I left school when I was 17. Also I had 4 O-levels as well. And I left in lower 6, and I ran away to Switzerland to become a snowboarding instructor. So yeah, and then after going to Switzerland and then going to London from there, and spending some time as a 17-year-old in London with no prospects, I came back home and realized I better get a bloody education, otherwise I don't have much to offer. So luckily, whilst working in the family business, I decided to get myself a bit of education, and got qualified in the chemistry field that I work in now. But it's a field that I haven't worked in for the last 8 years or so, where I've been doing the tourism thing. So yeah, fully. And back on the thing where you were saying being called a daydreamer when you're at school. I mean, some people call us daydreamers, others call us visionaries. We just have to decide which one you want to listen to at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think I'm a visionary then.
I like to think I'm a visionary.
I think, it's like I said, the world is a very different place today, and it's certainly not something that I would tell my kids to do. But I know that I've always had the sense that I will make it happen. I will make a plan, and I'll make it happen, and I'll tomorrow, even in our business today, like if we're going through a slump and tourism was bad at certain times in our history, it's okay. I've always felt we will make a plan and we will get through this, and tomorrow's another day. So there's another opportunity out there all the time.
Yeah. So tell us about your current collection, with ivory and Amalinda. There's quite a big portfolio there. So give us a little bit about each one, and tell us how you got into that situation. I mean, like it's a massive achievement what you've done with all these different projects.
Well, I just want to say firstly that it's not just me. I have a great team, and it would be remiss of me to say it was all me.
Cool.
But I think it started off with Amalinda as our flagship. My parents had their game farm, and my dad having the knowledge of, farmers, they can do anything, they can build anything, they can create anything. And you talked about Dylan Bennett. His uncle Dave Bennett is actually my brother-in-law, and it was Dave's idea right in the beginning to build Amalinda, which is in Matoba Hills, right back into the rocks to make you feel like you're living like a sand bushman all those years ago. And it was in 1990, and there was no other lodges that you could stay in Matopus. So it was right at the cusp of the tourism industry developing in Zimbabwe after the 80s. And he was in business with my dad, and then my husband, Phil, being a hotelier, we were asked to come and join the business, and I don't have any education on hospitality at all. But what I've learned from him was how to deal with customers and clients and the whole hospitable sort of aspect of tourism, and being a hotelier, I suppose. So we actually worked at Amalinda for 10 years, and as partners with my sister and brother-in-law. And then, of course, 2000 came, and tourism just fell onto its knees and completely stopped. So we had to make the decision then of how to split the company up and how to part ways, because Amalinda couldn't support us all. So Phil and I stayed with the company and thought, well, this is not going to take long. We didn't realize it was going to be a decade before tourism would come back. So every year you're thinking, well, it's just going to be another year. Next year is going to be okay. And I think that is the fundamental thing about being a Zimbabwean, is that you live in hope. And hope is one of those feelings that you just have. It's an intrinsic thing inside of us that we live in hope that things are going to get better. So we stayed with Amalinda, and it was pretty much weekend trade then. It was really quiet. And then in 2006, things were certainly not better. My parents had lost their farm due to the land acquisition.
Where was that?
Well, my folks lost their farm in 2002 when our country went through that land redistribution process.
What area was the farm?
Turkmine.
Oh, sorry, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, so they lost that in 2002, and we got an opportunity of taking over a lease in Wangi. And although tourism was still scraping along, and in fact there was no tourism, we could remember the hyperinflation years of 2006. There was nothing on the shelves, there was no bread, there was nothing. We were all trading for fuel, for oil, for sugar, and we were all spending 24, 36 hours in fuel queues. Remember those days? So keeping the camps open at that time and just supplying our staff and the clients was tough, let alone a household. Anyway, so we took over a concession in Wangi, and that was really a vision of mine and something that really almost split our family, because I wanted to take on something else when we should have just really been consolidating and just handling what we had. And then my husband said, well, look, if we do this, then we need to take your parents on as partners, because now they're off the farm and they can help us there. So we signed them up as our partners. And from there on, I mean, it just was, it just started to mushroom. And so we have Ivory Lodge in Matoba Hills, in Wangi National Park. And that was built by John Burton. So it was built also 30 years ago as these tree houses, these stilted platforms. And you lived like Robinson Crusoe amongst the trees, you know, and it's still today like one of the last remaining treehouse experiences, accommodation that is left in Zim. And then in 2004, of course, now after 4 years, tourism is starting to go up, and we've dollarized, and so our economy is stable. And we had the financing, and that's what we've always done. Is we've always just plowed back all our money back into growing the business more, and instead of just pocketing it and taking profits, we just kept pushing those profits right back into the business, and that's how we just grew it, like completely owned outright, family owned. So we have no investors, and it's awesome. We don't owe anything to the bank either. And then my dad built Coolie Bush Camp, which is like seen as our premier. So Amalinda was our flagship, and Coolie Bush Camp is what like our premier offering. And it holds a really special place in all of our hearts, because not since Amalinda had we built another, camp, because I was already built. So yeah, we have 3 camps in Wangi and 2 in Matoba Hills. So
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I stayed at Amalinda with my dad and my mom years ago, and yeah, it was definitely one of my dad's favorite places to stay local in and around Bulawayo, and yeah, I think they went there many times after that. But yeah, I spent one nice weekend there with them when Billy Daly was there.
Yeah, he's still with us.
Is he still there?
Yeah.
And
12 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And then I had the privilege of staying at Kulu once. Okay. I can't remember who I schmoozed to get a night there, but
it must have been Mitchell.
No, I don't think it was. I can't remember. Yeah. I might have messaged you even, because I was driving back from Vic Falls, but I had done something stupid, like I'd gone to Vic Falls in the day and had to do something, and then had to go back the same day. And I was driving back, and I was just tired. And I don't know if I messaged you or Phil or somebody, and I was like, "I'm tired. Please, can I have a bed?"
Yeah, I think it was me, and I do recall that. I do.
Yeah.
And so you were at Kulu for that night.
Yeah, I was at Kulu for that night, and it was amazing. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, Amalinda is very different. And if you had to ask me which was my favorite, I always say it's like choosing which is your kid, which kid is your favorite. And Amalinda, I think people disregard the spirituality of Matoba Hills and the history and the culture. And, yes, it's not a big game area. And, yeah, we have amazing, rhinos that you can walk out on and track. There's those leopards that are really elusive, they just duck down behind the rocks. You can't hardly see them. But it is, I mean, Cecil Rhodes and Mazilakatsi and Lobengula and all the history and that whole footprint there. It's the soul of Zimbabwe, I think. Matopus.
Yeah, Matopus has got a very special place in my heart. And I mean, talking about those leopards, I've spent my entire life in that area, and I've seen one leopard in Matopus in my entire life.
Even me.
And it's supposed to have the highest concentration of leopards on the planet, or something crazy like that.
Yeah, at its time, it was supposed to have the highest concentration. I think it was supposed to be one leopard for every 5 kilometers.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've done Matopus Heritage Ride twice.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, that place, I love that place. And especially from the point of view of the heritage and the history, like you say, with all the cave paintings and all that. I've almost crashed a mountain bike into a rhino several times.
Yeah.
That was quite an experience. But yeah, it's like you said, trying to choose which one's your favorite. I get asked all the time, "What's your favorite river that you've kayaked?" And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
there's no favorite. They're all different.
Yeah. But surely the Zambezi is got to be like up there.
Well, it's honestly, it's just too different. Like the Zambezi is so.
The rapids are manic compared to just kayaking down a fast river. I don't know.
No, well, there's different types of kayaking. So Zambezi is actually quite a forgiving, friendly type of kayaking because it's so big and the water's so deep and the rapids are fluffy and everything. You get a nice, good beating sometimes here and there, but you always come out the bottom alive. Whereas other rivers that you kayak can be really steep, really shallow. You're dropping down like waterfalls and stuff like that, and the technicality of those rivers, there can be dangerous things like siphons, and so there can be like much bigger consequences on smaller rivers that are steeper and stuff. So it just depends on what you're doing and what type of kayaking you like. But I mean, just for pure sheer fun and stress-free fun, the Zambezi is quite good.
Yeah, but I mean, you've lived and rafted kayaked those rapids many times. So I think you get used to it. And so you kind of get a little bit blasé, but I think if you were a first timer, I think those rapids are.
Yeah, it's always fun when a kayaker from the UK or the States comes and spends some time, and you see their face the first time going down the river. It's one of the most beautiful things, the shock and awe.
Yeah, and you got to have like pretty big lungs, I think, when you go down that river.
Yeah, you learn to breathe through your bum. It's fine.
Can you on your show? You can talk like that?
Yeah. Don't worry. I swear and I cuss and I do all sorts. This is real. I'm not putting on any fake any fake pretenses for everybody. What you see is what you get here.
We've got humor and really get down and dirty.
Oh, you're not drinking your wine there, Sharon?
I am. Cheers.
Cheers. I'll join you with a Diet Coke.
As we do. Yeah.
Jim Wall's got a nice comment here. He said, I'm a dreamer and visionary as well. I believe this identity means that we see beyond the immediate, tangible world around us and are willing to create our own new possibilities. You're awesome, Sharon. Wow. Jim is a past guest and a good friend of mine. He was on the show. He's been on the show in his own capacity as a one-on-one guest, and he's been a panel guest a couple of times. And I think
he was one of the previous, the number ones, where I'm number 29. It's okay. I know my pecking order. Nice to meet you. And thanks for that. I think you're absolutely right. I think it's people say to you, what is it that makes you a visionary and I don't think you set out and you can't go to university to learn that. It could be a skill that you learn, but I think it's also it's in you. I think it's either in you or not.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from a childlike mind. As long as you don't, as long as you are curious, playful, and willing to explore, that's where I personally think it comes from. I think a lot of people force themselves to grow up too quickly and become serious about life, and I think it's that seriousness that kills that curiosity, which in turn puts you into a line of narrow thinking rather than expansive thinking, I think.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, that sense of adventure, and I think life should be viewed as an adventure. It shouldn't be seen as something that you are boxed into and has to be this way or that way. And I think as we grow older, we forget about that youthful enchantment of life and of just being out there and doing shit.
Yeah, I'm quickly looking for a quote here. Celebrate the childlike mind, was someone clever said that. I can't remember who it was, but
oh, that's nice.
Yeah, celebrate the childlike mind. And even if you go biblical, which is not really my field or thing, but even Jesus himself said, be ye as little children. So
and you know what? We've got the rest of our lives to be adults and serious. I don't know. I think I'm like 20, I don't feel like I'm 52. I still think I'm 20 years old and I still have a lifetime ahead of me, but obviously I don't. But I think it's a mindset.
Adulting is overrated.
Totally. I want to go back.
Donna Tiltman said, Paul, you should write a book on all your Africa experiences. Donna, I am actually trying to do that. I started a thing a year and a half ago called The Chronicles of Suntwe, where I've written 5 stories so far, and I started writing the 6th story, and I got so flippin' blocked, and my problem is I'm a perfectionist. And the 6th story is so important to me in my heart that I feel like the writing that I'm doing is not doing justice to the experience, and that I'm not selling it well enough, and that the scenery and the things I saw were so beautiful that they need to be written properly, and I don't have the skill to do it. So I've been toying with this idea a lot. I'd actually like to hear your opinions, but I was thinking of potentially doing another podcast type thing like this, where I just tell the stories, because I'm much better at telling the story than writing it. The only benefit of writing it is I've got photos and video and all that kind of cool multimedia evidence to go with it. So it becomes a bit better. But I will drop a link into the comments later of where the stories are written. So yeah, thanks for that.
But also you're a little bit ADD as well. So to keep your focus on writing and having the command of the English language is also, also kind of tough. Not that you do. You don't have a problem with that, but I'm saying that one sometimes.
Yeah. I love, because I do absolutely love writing. And if anyone has followed my Instagram or my Facebook posts, I write a bunch of horseshit that goes with a photo. And I say it's horseshit because it's just me sort of like trying to order my own thoughts and get where my head's at, and then I throw it out there in case it's interesting to somebody. I've had a few people writing inbox messages to me telling me I'm all preachy and stuff, but that's not the intention. I'm not preaching a belief. I'm not preaching a life system or of any sort. It's literally just me trying to get this word vomit shit in my head out, and I put it out onto paper so that I can actually try and learn something from what I'm thinking.
But also you mustn't be so self-critical, because what you think might be boring inspires other people, and you never know who it's inspiring. And that's what's important, is just to get it out there, because like Donna says, you should write this all down. This is exciting. You've lived an extraordinary life.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, my life, part of my life purpose is that I want to inspire. If I truly inspire one person to do more or be more than they were before they met me, read me, encountered me, just one, then I'm successful in my eyes, and that's all I want to do. So you're right. You just put it out there, and the thing is, again, it's if it falls on the right ears, it's received with the right thing. If it falls on the wrong ears, it's received with the wrong thing. You can't control that, and you just have to put things out there. And if some will, some won't. So what? Who's next?
Well, we were talking about that earlier. Haters, there'll always be haters who will cast shadow. Hey, so there'll be so many more people that will just love what you do and what you're saying. And I mean, I know you've been that to my son even. You've always been warm and welcoming and like, come on, Mitch, let's do this shit together.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good thing. Now you've brought up Mitch. I read in your brief little thing that you sent me earlier that you had Mitch had an early health issue. Would you tell us about that and share with us the journey on that and how that shaped your lives and his life? And yeah.
Okay, I'll hope not to tear up when I do talk about him, because he is. I was 30 years old, living in Matoba Hills, and I have my second child who I don't understand what the hell is going on. He doesn't want to eat. He doesn't want to grow. He's just vomiting all the time. He's just lying there in like in and out of coma sort of thing. Anyway, we got him to a hospital at 2 months old in Cape Town, because no one here really figured it out what was going on. And he was diagnosed with a very rare disease called, it's not a disease, but it's a condition called nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. I'll say that slowly, nephrogenic diabetes insipidus. So it's a type of diabetes, but it's a water diabetes. So it's not sugar. So it's not sugar mellitus, and it's not insulin related. It's actually to do with your kidneys and their ability to absorb water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he is perpetually in a state of dehydration, and he, as a baby, you don't feed a baby water. You ever imagine, and he had this low-grade nausea all the time where he was just vomiting and he wouldn't eat. So, I mean, it's such a rare condition that, most doctors around the world will say, oh yeah, I think we probably covered that one day in our 7-year thing. But it's you can get the central form where people will hurt themselves and hurt their pituitary gland or whatever, and they get the central form. But that's easy, you just squirt the hormone up your nose. Whereas Mitchell's it's his kidneys that don't recognize the hormone, so he just drinks this volumes of water now. But you don't survive this. My mom, it was actually while Mitchell was being diagnosed that we realized it's a hereditary disease. So my mom's twin brother died of it.
Oh.
And that was at that time 55 years before. So so she never knew why he had died, and he just never grew. And I could see that in Mitchell. He just never grew. So we were lucky that we had these doctors in Cape Town, and they put a gastrostomy into his stomach. So he was fed via computer for the first 10 years of his life. And it was only at 2 years old did he voluntarily put any food in his mouth. So he was this little frail, headachy, crybaby. And I've always said, and I've talked about it in the past, that I had one child from heaven and Mitchell was from hell, because he was so difficult. And I even remember saying to his maid one day, we were driving on the way to Kariba, and he was just in the car and he was crying and whinging. And I just said to his maid, you know what, I'm just going to leave the both of you on the side of the road here and in these little, in this kamusha hut, because there's certainly no way that you actually want to do life. You don't want to do life. You just want to make everybody's life uncomfortable. And I think he was like 3 years old then. So for 10 years he had this gastrostomy, this pipe in his stomach, and he was fed by a computer. But now he's 20, nearly 22 years old, and he knows how to condition himself. He knows how much water he has to drink, and there's always that scare that he could get malaria or any kind of diarrhea or dehydrating situation, and then it's pretty serious when he does.
Well, that's amazing. But for those of you watching, I know Mitch relatively well, and this is literally news to me that I'm learning today. I had no idea about any of this. If you met him, you would never say. It's like there was never anything wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, kids don't survive this disease. They don't, and so he's a miracle child. And what he's taught me about resilience and the will to live has stayed with me forever, and it'll always stay with me. And his compassion for people, he's got an incredible compassion. He just sees a beggar on the side of the road, or and he's always giving and uplifting and wanting to help people. I think it's just he's survived. He's out there and he wants to help others, which is great.
That's amazing. What a good boy. I love that kid anyway. But we've got a comment here from Dawn Halstead. Absolutely wonderful to have you, Dawn. It's been a long time since we chatted. We must catch up soon. The magic here is that we are visitors, but the special ones share. They give unconditionally and not defined by society. You both have the passion power. When you believe, you make it happen. Naturally, on a final note, we are all vulnerable. We are all gifted. The difference is what you do with it. Absolutely. That goes full circle back to the beginning where I was saying there's no extraordinary people, just ordinary people that make extraordinary decisions, and everybody's got the tools and the ability. It's just whether or not you decide to push yourself in that direction or not.
Yeah, I think we all have that, as Dawn says. It's just how you present it and bring it out and explore it.
So there's another one, Donna Tippler, being supportive here. Good. Donna watches often, and it's great to have you again. Thanks for coming, Donna. Still got to have you on at some point. I want to chat to you about your career and that. So please remind me for next season. Good point, Sharon. You as your own person, as well as your business and your special family, have inspired many of us humble Zimbos.
Hey, Donna. She's like my neighbor.
That's
we also
cool.
had our own journey, you're right. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, we all
Big
have
big career change and everything. It's great.
Yeah.
The courage to change when you just feel like it is a massive thing. One of the things that we discussed as a panel a while ago, 2 weeks ago or so, we were talking about navigating change. That's when Jim Wall was on with us. So if you haven't seen that one, guys, go back into the history or go onto the podcast or the YouTube channel, and you can find the one about navigating change, which is quite interesting.
I'm going to get on there soon.
Sharon Hughes is saying, weren't you guys involved in the Bulawayo Club? Well done to you all.
Yeah. Yeah, we were actually. That was one of my big bravado moments in my persona. It was like I saw an opportunity of a gentleman's institution here in Bulawayo that was. It was 2009, just before the turn of our tourism industry, where we became dollarized, and that institution, which goes back in history to Cecil John Rhodes's era, was on its knees. It had hourly rates on the rooms, and God forbid the members of the Bulawayo Club listening to me now, they weren't around, when we were negotiating at this time to take on this lease, and it was very sad. Anyway, we did take over the club, and we negotiated a 14-year lease with that membership and the chairman that were there at the time, and it was seen as like the revival of Bulawayo, because it was suddenly this old institution had investment in it, and it became this shining star. And I'll never forget our opening night. We had the mayor there. We closed off the streets, and we had all those vintage cars around there, and everyone came in the swinging 20s. And I think, and I don't even want to tell you how much money we spent on that opening night. It was a rocker, and the Minister of Tourism was there to open it up. And that was in 2010. No, 2001. Sorry, 2010. Yes, 2010.
I think I can't remember if I was there or not.
I think you probably were, because
I think so.
It was thousands of people there, and it was in the papers, and it was a big thing. And anyway, it was. We gave it 5 years, and then I think it was 5 or 6 years, and it was just one of those decisions. It wasn't a very happy divorce. I'm not going to pretend it was anything else. It was not a happy divorce, but it taught us that sometimes you overextend, and you take your focus off what's your true business, your core business. And we were in safaris, and to have a hotel in downtown Bulawayo was it took its toll on all of us, and was the best thing we ever did was get out of it. And you cut your losses, and you understand in life that you don't always make the right decisions, but it's how you deal with those decisions when they are at their worst and at the bad times, and how you pick yourself up and get out and carry on. That's
absolutely. I have a lot of fond memories of the Bulawayo Club. My dad was a long-standing member there, and we had many, many dinners there, both before and when you guys were running it. And on top of that, I spent a few really good evenings just with Phil at the Bulawayo Club, where I randomly, because I do stupid.
Yeah,
I randomly do weird things where I, like, even in the Vic Falls, like I would be sitting at home at 9-10 o'clock at night on a Wednesday night or a Tuesday night in Vic Falls, and just get a bee in my bonnet and drive out to Hallengon in the middle of nowhere in the gorge, and go down the gorge and explore in the middle of the night, and come home at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'd do that by myself, or if I could coax some poor unwilling friend or someone to go with me, I would. And the same thing happens to me in Bulawayo. Like, I would sit in Bulawayo, and on a random Monday or whatever, just sitting there. I would literally have eaten dinner and be sitting in front of the TV watching series and just get a bee in my bonnet, jump in the car and bugger off to Metopus in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And a couple of times I did city missions where I climbed onto the roofs of buildings. And I went.
And you never got captured by the cops.
The thing is, in Zim, if you do things with the right level of authority, no one asks questions. You just pretend like you're supposed to be there.
Yeah, no, I'm just fixing some Zesa cable or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on the roof of Bulawayo Center a few times at night. I've been a lot of buildings where I'm not supposed to be on the roof. I've been on the roof.
Were you on the roof of Bulawayo Club?
No, I didn't get on the roof there, but I did go to. I just did randomly rock up there. A couple of times with the tourist that was just happened to be with me passing through town, and once or twice on my own, where I just rocked up, and then Phil met me at the door, and I chatted to him, and then he gave us a grand tour down the wine cellar, all sorts of areas that you would never even know about if he hadn't showed me,
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of good memories from there. It was one of those places. And I even had my 21st at the Bulawayo Club. I had a masked ball for my 21st birthday at the Bulawayo Club in the main dining hall.
Oh, wow. Was that when we were there? Or?
No, it's that must have been 2004, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. 2005, somewhere there.
Yeah, it was the High Court is just up the road, right? So people would go get married at the High Court, and we never had any fences. It was like, there's the street, and here you are on the patio of the Bulawayo Club, and that's how we wanted it to be. We wanted you to feel that it was this integration, and that was part of why we took over the club, to separate the fact that it was a gentleman's only institution and open it up as a boutique hotel. And people would come. I mean, at first when we took over, it was just gravel outside, and we put these beautiful gardens in, and they would walk down from the High Court and have their photographs done in the gardens, and you'd be sitting there sipping coffee on the side, on the patio out there, and just watch the world go by. And I think, it's I think that's what the beauty of Bulawayo was, certainly, that you could step out of a hotel like that in the downtown city of Bulawayo, in an African city, and be safe. So that's Bulawayo for me.
So time is ticking on. I just want to tell everybody watching, we got 20 minutes left. There's a couple of things I want to cover, and I've got a few questions that I want to go over. But if you've got questions and you want to say something, or you've got comments or anything you want to add, please start throwing them in now, so that I can make sure that I get to what you're saying and get to your questions and comments, so that we can make sure that we don't neglect you, and that we get all the input from you guys. Joanne Schultz is in the audience saying, "Hi Sharon, it's been a long time since our days at Borough Street. How's life in Bulawayo? Paul, I think you should write that book." I will write that book. And Joe's son was on the show a while back, Corey, and her other son is going to be on the show next season. So that's great.
Hi, Joe. She's reminding me of our poolside Friday night galas that Savannah used to swim in, and it's because Sav used to swim for Zimbabwe from the age of 9 until school, and then also, of course, in water polo. So those Friday nights by the Borough Street pool with our cooler boxes, and in the rain, and it was that was a Friday night, every Friday night, but those are great memories. And it's funny how you move on, and certain things are different. And now we spend time watching Mitchell racing motorbikes, and so it was great to get that memory. Thanks, Joe.
Right, so a cause that's both close to both of our hearts. Me on a micro scale, and you on a slightly bigger scale. Talk to me about conservation. Tell me about your initiatives that you have founded and been involved in. One of them being the Mother Africa Trust. Then there's the Rhino Protection Initiative Trust. Tell us about those, where they started. Tell us about what you're trying to achieve with those things, especially for our international audience. I'm sure they'll be interested in what's happening on the conservation front in Zimbabwe and around.
And you say we've only got 20 minutes. In a nutshell, then I'll try and encapsulate it. I think from my core of being a bush cat farm girl, the sense of the environment is really strong. And when Mitch was so sick as well, and in 2001, I realized as a mother looking after a sick child that I had opportunities and I had experiences and I had resources to help me with my sick child. But there were many other people in the Kamusha, in the community, who didn't have those same opportunities. And I felt like it just hit me one day, like I have to help other people and I have to help other women. And I think that was when my first ideal of empowering women. It's very, very, very close to my heart. Women, have always had seen as the underdogs in our society, especially as Zimbabweans, right? Very macho sort of thing. So I'm talking in circles now, but let me go back to developing the trust was essentially to support those communities and those women around Amalinda. And then when we grew into Wangi, the focus became more wildlife, and it's quite a big balance trying to get community and wildlife in the right balance. But my tendency now is to go a lot more to wildlife, and I think because our wildlife in this country is, or in the whole world, is being severely neglected, and we are going through transitions in our globe that is quite frightening. And if we don't harness that now, we're going to be in trouble. So Mother Africa Trust was developed with two arms, one for community and one for conservation. And so there's more community work that's done in Matopus and more conservation efforts in terms of anti-poaching and looking after those areas as a frontier between the community and the national park. And I think I get very passionate about it, and sometimes I've been accused of being too emotional about it. It's the Mother Africa Trust was probably my biggest achievement that I think has really struck with me. And that's why I'm moving out of the business now, and handing the marketing and that sort of stuff up to Savannah, our daughter. And my end game, I think, is going to be in working with the communities and the conservation on a full-time basis. And that's my calling. That's where I really want to end up.
That's amazing.
That's
That's where the real fulfillment comes from at the end of the day for some people. I hear you. For me, I've done a lot of cool, enjoyable things, and I've mentioned this before on previous episodes and stuff. But being able to take the things that I love and enjoy and apply them to things that actually matter and create change and difference, like with the cyclone thing that we were discussing off camera. That's where real fulfillment comes, and where your skill sets marry with a real need, and create an environment where you can really change things and make a difference. It's very special to be able to do that and to have that opportunity.
But I know, Paul, like we were discussing earlier about your work in Chimani Mani, you do it because you have this thing that pulls you. It actually pulls you to go and do it, and you don't do it you're doing it for the wrong reasons if it's for glory and you want recognition, because that's not sustainable. That's not going to keep you going back out there. What you've done, you don't even talk about. You hardly even, and that's where the book maybe comes in, of those sort of experiences. But the people that you help and the lives that you change, and the wildlife that you're trying to save. It's a daily thing. And if you want to talk about conservation and wildlife in Zimbabwe right now, after the effects of COVID and this corona pandemic, it's quite devastating. And, it's difficult because not everybody wants to put that out on social media. And it's the work that is done is very much behind the scenes. No one really talks about the real heroes out there, the people that are making that difference. So
the boots on the ground.
Yeah, the boots on the ground. Yeah.
Kevin Nicklin is asking, any idea roughly how many rhinos are left in Zimbabwe now?
So Kevin, I can't, I don't actually have that information, and I don't think it would be public knowledge. When I was chairman of Matopus Rhino Trust, the numbers were disclosed to us, of course, by national parks, and again, it's not for public knowledge. But we have a healthy population. There's areas in Zimbabwe that have felt the ravages of poaching and stuff, and rhinos no longer exist in certain areas. I think it's something that we need to keep a watch on all the time about those specific beasts, because they're like gorillas, gorilla tracking and rhino tracking, I think, are up there on a par. And I think we could do a lot more in conserving these rhinos, and by putting like Rwanda does. Rwanda, you get a ticket, like a tag, to go and see them, and it's sometimes $1,500 US. That money all goes back into preserving that wildlife and those gorillas. And I think certainly in the future, that's what we should be looking to do here in Zim. Put that price tag on going on an adventure like that. I think people in Bulawayo will shoot me down right now, because they'll be like, shit, no, we can't go out and see our rhinos anymore if we're going to have to pay $1,500 to go and see them. So they'll probably be shot down in flames. But I think for an international tourist, to support rhinos and the numbers, and to make sure that they are getting the protection and the gene pool resuscitation that they need, I think there needs to be a lot more money put into it. So
yeah, that's
those exact numbers, but I'm not allowed to.
There definitely needs to be a two-tier system for locals versus foreigners. Sorry to all you foreigners out there, but the people who are born there need to be able to see these things without having to go abroad just to work for the money to get it.
Yeah. Good art, Paul. Well done.
I got myself into some dodgy territory.
I wasn't going to go there.
So I've got a couple of just fun questions to end us off with. One of them, just to get a bit more idea of who you are as a person, and wind things down a little bit. One of the questions I ask everybody that comes through is, as if anybody who hasn't been with us before, you'll see this is called Soshing with Suntwe, and my name there at the bottom of the corner says Suntwe, which is a Tonga word which means hyena. And the reason I got that name, the long story short, is that if you hear me laugh hysterically when I'm really happy, I sound like a cackling hyena, and it's really, really the type of sound that shouldn't be coming out of a grown man's mouth. But the other kayakers in the Tonga villages that live along the Zambezi River find it very entertaining. There's also other legends of why that name came in, but we won't go into those now. They're in the stories that I've written so far. And that's how I got my nickname, is Hyena Suntwe. So the question I like to ask everybody that comes on here is, what animal do you relate to most and why?
So I love the idea of a hyena, because I think they're incredibly intelligent animals, and I just love their whole social interaction. But I think for me, I think maybe because my ultimate passion is lions, I feel I would like to identify with a lioness, and without sounding too bold and overt, I think a lioness has this really strong social bond. They are fiercely protective of their pride and of their young. They have this womanhood, this thing that they work together in hunting, and they're providers. And I think if that could encapsulate me, that's who I would like to identify with as a lioness. A little stealth-like sometimes, a little cunning. You never know where she's coming from, and just straight away out of a bush, there she'll be. But I think it's, a lioness is probably the ultimate animal species for me.
That's a good answer. I like it. Kevin Nicklin's giving me shit in the comments here. He's saying, Paul, you're a foreigner now. I've still got a Zim ID, mate.
And he still sounds Zimbabwean.
That'll never change.
Yeah.
That will never change.
Never forget where you come from.
What question do you wish people would ask you more?
Wow. Probably, how does it really feel to be a woman in business? I think there's very little understanding about that. I think people don't really understand how women measure up to men, and how we are judged by men and by other women, and the jealousy that is shrouded in success with women. Not only jealousy, but maybe suspicion, and I think coming from a very manly environment, Zimbabwe is very much a chauvinistic society. Being recognized as a woman, as an equal, and understanding what that means, and the sacrifices that we as women have to go through to be recognized as equal, or even standing shoulder to shoulder with a man, I think is something I would like to. I'd love more people to understand that it's not something that you get up every day and you're just this hard ass bitch, It's not, I still, and I think coming later into my 50s now, and you look back and you think, I was that lioness, I was that tenacious, go-getter bitch. And I think when you get older, you realize how the sacrifices that you've made and how you've been kicked down. And I think to ask me that question of how it really feels as, to be a woman in this society, I think that's maybe more people should ask that one.
Yeah. Do you think though that it's still like that? Is it as hard for my generation? Or was it I think it was definitely harder for your generation, but do you think it still applies to my generation as much? Because again, I'm a guy, so I have no experience of it. But from my own personal experience, I've never looked at. I mean, I've been surrounded by powerful women my whole life as well. So yeah. I've been raised around that. My mom owned businesses. I've had female family members, all owned and run businesses, and friends and all the rest of it. And I've grown up around people like you. And so maybe my personal experience is different to the norm. But my own personal experience is that I haven't really noticed it, or I don't notice. I don't see a woman in business and think, oh, you're a chick. I just see what I see, really. And sometimes I just see a formidable foe or a formidable opponent, should I say.
So you're rare. And I don't think it's something that is commonly accepted. And certainly, out in the business front, if you're a woman and you're out at a dinner party, you're going to get hit on because you're a woman.
Yeah, sure.
And I think when you take yourself out of our level of society and go into the kamusha and the girl child, and what opportunities does the girl child have,
sure.
As opposed to raising a son in a village, and I think that is the disparity. So it's not just certainly in it's to a lesser degree in your generation and to my kids' generation. But I still think that it's very much seen as the man's side to provide. And I'll ask you the question right now: who's cooking your dinner?
My dinner?
Yeah.
Well, I don't eat dinner on Wednesdays, but I.
That was so clear. But your wife, right?
No, I cook most of the time. I cook equally.
Okay, so you are very rare.
Yeah, we have a different lifestyle as well. In England, it's like it's everything. Everyone does everything.
Takeouts on the way home, right?
No, I don't eat takeaways. No. Honestly, I cook as well.
No, I mean that's awesome, and I think so it's awesome, and I think when I was growing up, my dad was fundamental in raising my sister and I like that, as being strong woman, capable woman. You go and you get out there and you are equal. There's no special treatment for you. You are as good as a man.
That's perfect. That's how it should be. Okay, if you could master one skill that you don't have right now, what would that be?
Diplomacy. I'm always told that I'm the most undiplomatic, straight shooter. Maybe it's part of my German background, but it's something that I'm working on every single day of my life, is diplomacy.
Well, I didn't see that coming, but it's recognition of something like that is quite big of you. So that's the biggest step you've taken already. So if you already acknowledge that that diplomacy is something you need to work on, then I'm sure it's going to happen naturally.
It's work. I'll tell you, it's work.
Kevin said you brought out the hyena, Sharon. Suntwe arrived.
I see that now.
That was a small preview of what the awful sound sounds like. And then the last question I have for you, because it's time to wrap up, is what do you want to be remembered for, and what's the legacy you want to leave behind?
Sure. I couldn't even have a sip of wine then. So say that again. What do I want to be remembered for?
Yeah, what do you want to be remembered for, and what is the legacy you want to leave behind?
Well, I think there's two things. I think one, what I want my children to remember, that I was a mother first, for them, and that whatever I do for them. And I think that goes for Phil as well. What I want to be remembered for, I think personally, I want to see what I can do to create or change what brand Zimbabwe really means out there in the real world. And I think maybe that comes from my marketing side of my mind. I think the perception of what Zimbabwe is, one, as a tourist destination, but also two, as a country and what we've been through, and a genuinely good place to be, with people wanting to carry on living here. Our youth growing up and finding Zimbabwe to be a place where they want to carry on living. They want to keep giving back, and they want to be part of its growth. I think if I can help influence that in any way, I think in any small way, I hope that's what I can do.
Well, that's fabulous. And I think you're already fulfilling that. So that's wonderful. Right. And on that note, I think it's time that we bid our farewells to everybody, and we've pushed it to just over 1 hour, so we've managed to keep it good and to the time. I try not to make it go too long. But Sharon, we've got a lot to talk about, especially on specific topics. I think we need to revisit at a later date and talk specifically about the topics about women in business and empowerment in those areas and those sort of things, and really dive deeper into the conservation side. This was a great general overview and a general look at your career and your journey, but I would love to really drill down into some of those topics specifically with you at a later date, if you would be happy to join us again.
Yeah, I would love that, and I'm certainly going to be posting some questions to you panelists next week when it comes to your chat, because that's interesting for me.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out of your day. And it's been an absolute pleasure and wonderful to catch up and see you again. And yeah, take care and stay well. And to everybody watching, thank you for joining us, and thank you for interacting. And as always, thank you to the loyal viewers who are here every week. It really means a lot, and it makes such a difference having you guys in the comments. So yeah, see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Cheers.